In a moment, I'll introduce Tom and he'll go and act out certain parts of the play. Then we're going to debate what Hamlet was actually saying and thinking about, because unless you are averse to great Shakespearean English, which I am not, it might have a bit of layman's terms understanding, so we'll do that. And in the first one, I'm going to attempt to coach Hamlet live in front of you through what he's going through in his mental state. The second one, we will do the same thing, but I'll be asking you for your ideas on what you think I should be asking Hamlet about in a coaching perspective, and then we'll coach that through. And the third and final soliloquy you'll hear Tom do, we'll debate it again, and then it's your turn to coach Hamlet live in front of the whole of this group. So I'll give you pens and paper on your table. Please make as many notes as you would like. Please add as many questions to your handout or your bit of paper as you would like. Because if you don't understand something, please ask.
Now I'm going to perform 3 speeches from Hamlet this afternoon. Each of these speeches are known as soliloquies, which are speeches made by the character with only themselves present. It's basically a dramatic device that Shakespeare uses to get us inside the head of his main characters. The word soliloquy deriving from the Latin word solus, which means alone. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. Oh God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fie, oh fie! 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows the seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely, that it should come to this. But 2 marks dead. Nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king, that was to this Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother, that he might not beteem the winds of heaven, visit her face too roughly, heaven and earth. Must I remember? Why, she would hang on him, as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, yet within a month. Let me not think on't. Frailty, thy name is woman. Within a month. And yet the tears, the most unrighteous tears, had left a flashing in her galled eyes. She married. O most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
So the idea is now to debate what was actually happening in Hamlet's mind. I'm sure you picked up some of that in some degree, but let's try and unpick it from a layman's terms. Can I also ask you, if you will, to try and think about any modern day equivalent situations that you may understand from what you hear from Shakespeare's Hamlet as well. So, let's debate. So, understandably, Hamlet's upset.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty suicidal in that speech. He just wants the ground to kind of open up and swallow him. He's kind of, trying to come to terms with his father's unexpected death, and the fact that his mother, within a month of his father's death, has jumped into bed with his uncle Claudius, who's now king. So he's pretty suicidal, but also he knows that God doesn't approve of suicide, so he's not going to be able to do that. One of the early lines of that speech is, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter, i.e., would that God was more up for suicides.
So he seems to be almost like torn between 2 things. On one hand, he thinks he wants the ground to up and take me, I'm gone. But the next breath he's saying, but I can't do that. So he seems to be indecisive. Is that fair?
Absolutely, and in fact, one of Hamlet's main kind of characteristics throughout the play Hamlet is his kind of indecision over what to do. So yeah, he's pretty sort of frustrated and it's confused. I think perhaps up to this point in his life, everything's pretty much gone according to plan. He's done what he's wanted to do. He's a happy man. His parents apparently had a happy marriage, and now it's all completely fallen apart. The things that he kind of relied upon are no longer there. His father dead, and for some reason, his mother has got married to his uncle within a month of his father's death. It's very confusing.
That's right.
Yes.
Some of the things you'll see on the screen are what we call thinking traps. These are a psychological term, and rather than call it mental health, which can encompass a whole lot of things, we'll call it psychological health. And some of the thinking traps, one of them is generalising. So they're quite sweeping statements. We generalise, everything is bad, nothing is good, and so on. And often it's exaggerated. So you'll probably hear some of what Hamlet's saying, which is fairly simplistic to what's being put across here. What I also noticed from what you said there was Hamlet seems to be directing a lot of his anger, almost over-exaggerated anger and grief, at his mother.
Yeah, he's lashing out a great deal at his mother. That's the thing that is occupying most of his thinking. How on earth could his mother sort of betray the memory of his father? But yes, quite possibly he's kind of expressing his own grief and confusion by really giving his mother a kick. To himself, of course. I mean, that speaks entirely kind of in his head. He's not actually discussing this with anyone other than himself. But yeah, that's the thing that seems to be that's the thing he can't quite handle. Even kind of more than his father's death, I think. His mother's his mother's kind of betrayed the memory of her.
So in modern day, let's ask you, in modern day, do you find that some people have the same kind of things where something bad has happened, they often direct their blame at somebody else and not put it back to themselves? Whether it's the golf clubs, because I played a game of golf, Phil, or it was because something's happened at work and therefore you blame somebody else something. It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? So 400 years ago, the same things existed. This is not a new thing we're going through. We're all doing it. We're all having to deal with this stuff. But it's interesting how that's not happening from my point of view. One thing I've got to run this out. The last line, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. That's very interesting. Is he saying that he can't share any of this stuff and therefore he must keep it very private? And
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. He's basically saying all this awful stuff is happening to me. I don't understand it, but obviously I can't share that with anyone. I mean, who would understand it? Only I can possibly understand this problem. I think part of his problem is there's a sort of a public and private thing going on here. One is that he's still the Prince of Denmark, and so it's probably not too seemly for him to go around, shouting the odds about his mother and complaining about, his uncle becoming king. It's a kind of almost like a collective responsibility, that's what you might say in sort of governmental terms. But I think he feels he's got to put on a brave face for his subjects, and so he mustn't. He's got to toe the line, at least for the time being. It's all happened very quickly. But also on a private level, I just think he doesn't. I think he thinks this is a totally unique situation to him. No one in the world has ever experienced what he's experienced, and so there's no way that anyone else will understand. So what would be the point of sharing? Just keep it to myself. Keep my own counsel.
Sure. How come is that? People keep thinking it's obviously brand new to me. It's the world's first ever. I'm the only one feeling like the way I'm feeling, and therefore I can't possibly share with anybody because of what they might think if I do admit it's a situation. Has anyone found that before? Yeah? People don't kind of share this stuff because, well, rather not, because of what other people might think about me. Okay, so any questions you've got for the situation before I go to trying to coach Hamlet through his cognitive challenges, shall we say?
Is he feeling any sort of hatred towards his mother or his uncle? Or?
I think he hates his. I think at this stage of the play he dislikes his uncle. you may have heard in that last speech that compares his uncle unfavourably to his father, this Hyperion great warrior, king his father, to this satyr, joker. Yeah, so by comparison, Claudius is just a complete idiot. How on earth could his mother have got together with him? So yeah, there's a dislike at this stage for Claudius. His mother, I think he clearly loves his mother very much, and I think that he just feels that she has betrayed the memory of his father and perhaps himself. So I think, it's more kind of lashing out than kind of hatred of his mother, but I think there's a dislike of Claudius, without a doubt.
Anybody else?
Is the last sentence you were talking about, is that also to do with the fact that he's a royal, therefore he's not allowed to show emotion or he's not allowed?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's part of his problem, that's one of the big problems he has in this play, is that he is the Prince of Denmark. He's an important person. He's got to, as he sees it, put on a brave face, and support the new king. At this stage, though he doesn't like his uncle, he is at this stage the legitimate king. So he's got to sort of toe the party line.
Is there any real life examples that Shakespeare had to come up with the character?
What a very interesting question, because we debated that, didn't we, a few months ago?
Well, only in the sense that Shakespeare had a son called Hamlet, not Hamlet, Hamnet, and Hamlet sadly died, I think in his early teens, or he was 11 or 12, just a couple of years before Hamlet was written. So that perhaps gives you a sense of what was going through Shakespeare's mind. I don't think he was coming up with a kind of direct sort of comparison with another kind of royal family. I don't think. But I think that was what was going through his mind about the loss of his own son.
I don't know what the cultural norm was since a few centuries ago, whether there was also a feeling that, because it seemed to turn more from grief to anger, and was the anger about maybe the fact that he didn't have control over his mother.
Absolutely.
Whereas, and had he had a life where if he was still a student at 30, was he still in control of his destiny, and suddenly he wasn't?
Yeah, well, and actually, of course, nowadays the concept of a mature student is quite common.
Yeah.
I think 400 years ago it was quite odd that 30-year-olds still studying at university. So I think there's possibly some kind of guilt there that he wasn't around when his father died. His death is so far sort of unexplained. So I think there's a bit of perhaps he could have, if he'd been there, it might not have happened, or might not have happened in the way it did, or maybe he'd even have been able to prevent his mother from marrying his uncle. I think there's a little bit of guilt.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, and thanks for the question, because what you see up there is a model that's often used. When things happen, let's say it's an event or a situation, in this case, there are two situations, the death of his father, and then obviously the marriage of his uncle to his mother. So two very decent big events. People tend to look at things in one of those two camps, the blue camp or the red camp. And often it's like global, the world is a major event, it's a huge thing, and clearly it's a thing, but it's a very, very big thing. Maybe the guilt, and it's all my fault, if I had been here and not a mature student, which was apparently odd in those times, maybe I could have said my farewells to my dad, prevented him actually dying, and maybe even had to say my mother married my uncle. And the last part there is stable, which is, that's it now. No more. It's going to be like this forever. I can't change this. This is what life's going to be from this day forward. And you mentioned a few times in the soliloquy, that's it. I can't do about it. Whereas the other side, go to the bottom right-hand corner, it's an event, it's a huge event, but it's very specific. It's one event in a lifetime. And if you think about death, it's inevitable. Sadly, everyone is going to move on. External, maybe it was outside of his control, or someone else's fault, more on that later on in the play. And transient bit is, sure, right now it's difficult, but I might recover from this, I can get better at this. So it's a very simple model that we use a lot in workshops and a lot in coaching. And you get people to really understand which sort of camp you're mainly camping in. Is it to the blue side or more to the red side? It's possible to be in bits of both, but quite often we do find ourselves by thinking more counting this side rather than this side. So here's my take now. I'm going to try and coach Hamlet through some of the things that we've heard, wish me luck. Coaching is different to counselling and different to therapy and other things that may be banned in the same kind of group. I myself am not a trained therapist. I ran a counselling course many years ago. I wouldn't call myself a trained counsellor, but allegedly I'm a trained qualified coach through cognitive behaviour coaching, positive psychology, other things like that. It's very important, and I really need you to understand that coaching is not judgmental, it's non-judgmental. It's not about what I think, it's about what the person feels. Nor is it my job as a coach to change anybody. And that's why we find so many managers in businesses struggle with that, because they want to change the person's perspective or view. But as a coaching point of view, it's not my job to go and do that. Merely open up the channels of comparison of ideas, alternatives and variations. And the last thing to mention to you before we go into some coaching is the fact that coaching should be entered into voluntarily by the coachee or the individual. It's not something that should be imposed upon somebody saying, I'm going to change you. I say that with great transparency, because when I first got into it many years ago, I wanted to change the world. I thought, I can help change the world. And then I realised that's not my job to change the world, nor is it my job to solve people's problems. It's not about that. It's about opening up people's views and minds to different things and let them come up with an alternative if possible. So let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. I'll make a few notes as we're going along. It's always good to go and do that. Hamlet, I understand you've had a very recent loss. My condolences. How are you doing?
Well, how do you think I'm doing?
I can only imagine what you're going through, and the difficult thing with imagining is I may have different perspectives and different ideas. What I'm most interested in finding out is how you're feeling.
Well, I'm feeling pretty low, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, can you describe what you mean when you say you feel pretty low?
Well, I just lost my father very suddenly, and I don't really know how to deal with that.
And what is it exactly you're dealing with?
Well, his death, how he died, that bit of it's pretty unexplained at the minute. He suddenly collapsed, apparently, which I didn't buy at all, because he was 60, but he was a perfectly healthy chap. He was a king, he was a warrior, and led people into battle. So he had plenty of opportunity, previous years to collapse and die. So I don't buy the fact that, a perfectly healthy man suddenly collapses and dies, and no one can tell me why.
I see what you mean by that explanation, and sadly sometimes things happen that we can't readily explain, and therefore have difficulty understanding it. It's about understanding perspective of how we're looking at things.
Well, don't you think it's a slightly weird situation? And what's more insulting is that within a month of my father's death, my mother has married my uncle, my father's brother, Claudius. How do you explain that?
But what do you make of the situation?
Well, I think it's pretty suspicious, wouldn't you say that sequence of events, that time frame? I don't think you'd understand, to be honest.
we all have different views of things that happen, and that makes it a bit difficult. Some might say nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so, and how we think about things does have an impact. So what I'm really only here to find out is what your views are. My views are quite relevant.
Well, my views are pretty private ones, and I'm not that comfortable sharing them with you. And to be honest, even if I did share them with you, it's not going to bring my dad back, and it's not going to separate my mother from Claudius. So, what's that?
So you want to see your mother and your Claudius separate?
Who in their right mind would marry their brother-in-law a month after their husband's death?
What possible reasons might there be for that?
I have absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea.
I'm sure you don't, it's very difficult, but what might there be?
Well, I mean, it can't be a sexual thing. I mean, my mum's just too old for that kind of thing. And Claudius, have you seen the state of it? You've seen the state of my uncle. He's like a weasel. I mean, compared to my dad, there is no comparison. There's no point in comparing them. Like comparing black and white,
So far you've described ways in which it could be possible and it wouldn't work, but I'm interested to find out why might it be the case?
I've said it's hard. I can't think of any reason why she would behave like this.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she does love him, and maybe she's loved him for a while or something, or he's trapped her in some way, blackmailing. I do. Yeah, that's like, yeah.
So these are all
I'm struggling to think of it.
These are all possible, yeah?
But it's possible.
But
Yeah.
what's perhaps more plausible?
To be honest, I don't really want to think much more about that matter because it's pretty disgusting.
Okay.
Repulsive.
I want to come in a conversation about how your mother might be feeling at this time with the loss of her husband. What do you think she's going through?
Well, she should be devastated. She should be devastated. I mean, she and my father were, from what I could tell, very much in love, and that was the love they expressed vocally to each other in front of me, and physically they were very tactile. So yes.
Is it possible that your mother is also grieving and feeling lost and upset?
She's got a funny way of showing it, but obviously that's possible.
Okay.
Yes.
When people feel alone, typically how might they respond when they feel alone, upset and grieving?
Well, maybe you seek an alternative source of happiness, maybe, attempt to restore some kind of normality in your life. But but not this early, a month after your husband has died. I mean, it's disrespectful. It's ridiculous.
So in your perspective, in your eyes, what is the right time frame for that to happen?
I guess, I suppose that does depend on the individual, not with a month.
So if it depends on the individual, is it fair to say that this might be the situation here? That you might find some comfort in that situation?
It's possible, that's possible, but I don't like it. I do.
I know there's asked you to like it, Hamlet, and I want to make sure that's very clear, because sometimes these things do happen, but maybe by taking a different perspective, we can look at trying to deal with it. You mentioned earlier on to deal with some stuff.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Maybe.
Okay. Listen, I'm really grateful that you've taken the time to talk to me. I know you have to go somewhere, but I want to just leave my contact details in the fact that what you're going through, I need this to understand it's not unique. It's pretty difficult. It's not unique, and you're not alone. So you can always contact me, email, phone, whatever, and we can talk things through. Perhaps have a chat again.
Okay, well, maybe I'll email you.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing enemy. To die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep, to say we end the heartache and 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. It is a consummation to that to be wished. To die, to sleep, to sleep. Chance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. But who would bear the whips and scorns of time? The presses wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the laws delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin. Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the threat of something after death? The undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus their native hue of resolution is sickly with a pale cast of thought. And enterprises of great pitch and moment with this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action.
Interesting what you just said about finding somebody to talk to, but being frightened of, being fearful of what they might think.
Yes.
And one of the things that goes through my mind is that that's not just a fear, but it's also a reality.
Absolutely.
If I make admissions about my emotional state, if I make admissions about my mental health, particularly if I make admissions about depression, anything that could be linked to a diagnosis or a label,
yes,
I am limiting myself considerably in a lot of situations.
And interesting at that point, I don't wish to be derogatory toward general practitioners here, but there is enough knowledge and information that says if you go to a GP with this opening up of your emotional state, a number of them will just say, well, here's some tablets to take and we'll see you in a few weeks' time.
So when you have to go to them for that, they'll label you as you're there.
And this is why the emergence of what we call talk therapy, is a label, talk therapy is having much more impact than just, at all, drugs alone. Because what you're doing is masking it. And the same thing with time off work for long-term sick. Long-term sick, because it's apparently in here, all you do is go away and think, oh, I feel a lot better now, go back, it's got a lot worse again. I've also had 6 weeks off, so I've got a whole lot of catching up to do, and some of my staff, my colleagues, might resent the fact I've been off for 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever it might be.
My worry is not finding somebody to trust, not finding somebody to listen, but my worry, my fear, my thinking is around somebody else finding out that I've gone to find somebody to talk to, somebody to listen to me. What happens if my work finds out I've done that?
Yes.
What happens if my peer group finds out that I've done that?
Yeah.
You know, what happens if my partner finds out that I've done that? I am going to be mental.
Exactly, and that's why we say, try not to call it mental health, call it psychological health, because the word mental has different connotations, doesn't it, in our mind? You are mental. No, I'm not mental. I may have some thought processes that aren't that very healthy or helpful sometimes, and here's one on mind reading. And you just said it was perfect. I'm thinking the worst possible case scenario. I'm making assumptions on what I believe, and therefore it's very much down to my self-image. If I don't like myself at certain points, therefore others clearly will just amplify that, and it'll be real. Right now, I'm holding it in myself and keeping control of it. And also characterising almost self-character assassination in some cases. So what things should I be talking to Hamlet about now? I mentioned thinking and what his thought process is. You mentioned fear. What else should I be talking? Go ahead.
Well, you should be asking Hamlet to let it all out on him, on you, because once you've got it, you can actually decide what Hamlet should do himself.
Careful, I'm not going to tell him what to do.
Well, obviously, but I mean, like, take it in and then decide what you would do if you were in that situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't ever share that in a coaching perspective, but I think asking him to open up and share is great. Yeah, good point. What else?
I've got one. Didn't a ghost come to and didn't you mention a ghost? Didn't you? Something to do with a ghost telling Hamlet, or is it just based on hearsay?
The ghost of his father appeared to him.
Okay. So perhaps challenging that in some way, or dispute that. Yes, exactly. Yeah, because it might be true, might not be true.
Yeah.
So you were trying to get him to define his expectations, like to see if that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. So define. Because again, this indecision, this debating, it is almost causing him to go stir crazy, and that's my label, no one else's. Anything else I should be working on with him? Go ahead, Phil.
You say he's very conflicted. He's conflicted about 2 things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other options out there. Just to kill him or not to kill him. He's debated those 2.
Exactly.
But what else is there? He's gone about vengeance, but he hasn't mentioned justice.
This is known in the trade as possible futures. There's not always this or this, just black or white. There are also shades of grey in between. But someone who's going through that very tight, intense situation might think, was it this or it's this? And that's it. And therefore I can't see past these 2 areas. So the idea of doing this was a very simple exercise, and feel free to take this away with you if you're not using it anyway. It's called decisional balance. If someone is indecisive about doing something or not doing something, so to be or not to be, it's a very, very handy tool to use, whether it's in writing or it's in verbal. If you are going to use it, I would always encourage people to write this down, and as the coach, you're not writing it down. They are writing it down. Because when they write it down, it means something to them. So, finally now, it's your turn to have a go at doing this. So, Tom will give you another background of where we are on the 3rd and final soliloquy of Hamlet. Then, we'll have a debate. And then if you're okay with me guiding you, I'll happily guide you through some coaching questions. It's on video, so be very careful. It's going onto YouTube. And I'll see what happens. Alright? So, who would like to ask Hamlet a coaching question? Go on then, Sam.
Define coward for me.
Ooh. Someone who is capable of taking action, bold action, and chooses not to, and possibly by thinking too much about the consequences.
So is that a choice? What we described there sounds like a choice. Is that fair, or is that?
Well, in my own circumstances, I think it is it's a choice. I'm choosing not to, I'm choosing either to kill Claudius or choosing not to kill him, and I think that, I'm suspicious of my own reasons for not wanting to kill him. I think they're perhaps the reasons of a coward.
Sorry, I thought you were Prince of Denmark. I'm really worried about what's going to happen to Denmark if you carry on with all your thoughts.
Good question. Yes, good.
It's a state. It's a rotten state. It's a corrupt state. It's being run by a corrupt ruler. That the corruption, the disease needs to be purged. I mean, actually, a side effect of me defending my father's honour and killing Claudius is that, well.
Yes, but if he's like corrupt, somebody else will do that, won't they? And you will then be in charge of Denmark and be able to sort something out for Denmark.
I admit it could be a pretty traumatic event for the country as a whole. Yes.
Last time you acted with violence, you got into severe trouble, you were banished from your country. Your thoughts are along the lines of committing more violence. Do you think that that's really the best thing for you to do right now? Bearing in mind the first time you did it, it ended out badly for you, and you're still alive. You know the consequences of doing it again.
If the ghost of your father tells you to avenge his death, what else can you do? What else is on offer?
What else is there?
Sorry?
What else can you do? What else is there? That's a good question you're asking yourself. I'm intrigued to find the answers.
Well, if I chose to ignore what my father told me to do, what I swore to do, if I ignored that, sure, yes, less people would die. But my father died. My uncle killed my father. So yes, if I didn't kill Claudius, yes, less people, technically speaking, the body count might be less.
Can I just check one thing with you? You said that your father told you to avenge his death.
Yes.
Did he say you must kill Claudius, or did he say you must avenge his death?
Well, how else do you avenge his death?
We had a conversation, didn't we, a while ago about the opportunities that might lie ahead of you. I think I'm right in saying, if I'm wrong, please correct me, that you said that you could potentially investigate the situation, overthrow Claudius to be the person you believe him to be, and then rule in your father's honour and continue his good things. Would you say that's a method of avenging someone's death?
It's quite a long-winded
That might be the case.
way of.
But is it possible?
Yes, it is possible if it was successful. The thing is, there is very little definite. I'm not sure what chance I would have of finding this kind of definite proof that Claudius committed the murder. So yes.
So there's a risk.
If there was, if this piece of paper was evidence of Claudius's guilt and I could prove it, then I might be able to do something about it. But there's no pour poison in my dad's ear and he ran away. All I have is what my father's ghost told me. So I admit, if I could if I could uncover some evidence of wrongdoing, yes, I may still be able to avenge my father's death and not kill Claudius myself. I may end up being executed. But I think that's quite a long shot. I don't know that evidence exists.
Well, it's kind of similar, really. I mean, you've got quite a long boat journey over to England. You've got a lot of time to think. You brought a couple of mates with you, I understand. Is there anyone that you can sort of chat to about it and maybe go over again some of the options that you talked on the phone before you left on the boat that might help clarify exactly what to do?
Well, those guys aren't like... You're referring to my university friends, Rosen.
Yeah, the ones that you kind of brought along on the boat with you, because I know you brought some.
I didn't bring anyone.
Oh, you didn't bring anyone in exile.
Those two people who were apparently my friends, my uncle just told them to. They're people I met at university. I have my best friend Horatio. Yeah, he's a good friend. But again,
Anyone you trust?
I don't think you can really, might possibly trust Horatio, but everyone else is in the pockets of my uncle, They're spying on me. That's what Polonius was doing. When I was having an argument with my mum, and unfortunately I ended up killing him.
That's unfortunate.
It was. No.
One last question?
Yeah. Hi Hamlet, my name's Grant Payne, I work with expressions. You mentioned that your father was a very honourable man and a good man.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
Absolutely was.
If you had a chance to ask him for some counsel and for some advice, given the situation that you're in at the moment, what do you think your father would say?
Well, look, the only thing he did tell me, except for avenge my death, which is the one thing he said, he did tell me not to go easy on my mum. He did tell me that. He said, don't blame her, or don't make things tough for her. He did say that.
With your mother potentially losing her only son in this act of revenge, as you call it, and her newly wedded husband, would that be a description of going easy on your mum?
Well, I can see what you're doing there, but
I'm just asking a question. I'm just trying to find out your view of it.
if you're saying, would going easy on my mum include not killing her new husband and not dying myself? Yes, possibly.
So coaching, counselling, therapy, motivation, interviewing, all this stuff can help. And the help is out there. Now, today was not about making you qualified coaches, because that is what we're doing today, but giving you an insight into the valuable aspects of what coaching can do. Whether you're a manager, an HR director, a mother, a father, or a counsellor yourself, whatever, a husband, a wife, a brother, or sister, it can all help. And the whole thing really is about not giving advice, asking open-ended questions, and getting people to think and debate about the validity of their actual thought processes. It only remains for me to say, well, thank you very much for coming along to this World Showcase of a new, unique, I hope it's quite a bit unique, a bit different. It's coaching on a mass scale, and would you please join me in thanking Tom for his excellent support.